Thanks so much, Fred. Hi, everyone. My name's John. I'm delighted to join you and give you a bit of an overview. My role here is CEO, and I'm one of the co-founders as well. I thought I'd touch on just what we'll cover in the session, and noting that it's a punchy amount of time for us to try and give you as much coverage, or at least a good sampler as to what the platform offers. We'll start. Mark will join us and give us a bit of a run through of his experience at Sacred Heart College in Geelong. I'll then go into an overview of just broadly the business. I will jump into how we manage data hosting. We'll talk through our integrations and APIs. We'll go across into kind of the Compass solution, some of the roadmap pieces that sit there, some of the new pieces of functionality that are in that roadmap, and some that have already been delivered this year. We'll talk about some of the custom branding options that are there that are really relevant for schools in the private and independent school space. I'll jump across and give you a live demo. We'll chat through success plans and a consultant kind of model that we have running, as well as how we'll go about minimizing risk and maybe some considerations that schools should look at when when the time comes to kind of evaluate potentially a new school management system. So I'll hand over to Mark to take the reins. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, John. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So thank you for the opportunity to share the Sacred Heart story. So for those that don't know, Sacred Heart is a Catholic girls' school in the Mercy tradition. We're located in Geelong, Victoria. We have an enrolment of just under 1,500 students in years 7 through the 12. We were founded in 1860. So we're celebrating our 165th year this year. So it means that our school is really defined by a long tradition, but at the same time, we have a real innovative, forward-thinking culture. So we certainly are always looking for the next thing, and we stand on the shoulders of giants, as our principal says. Our experience with Compass goes back to 2021 during the COVID times. We saw the creation of lots of let's just get it done thinking, which was essential at the time. Which resulted in a mixture of different platforms that were created, portals being used, systems for collaboration, etc., both internally within the school and between staff and students, and also with our families. And about midway through 2021, we took a step back and looked at what had been created and sort of thought, we need to stop here and we need to reassess what's happening. Those times really forced us to know our students really well, better than probably what we had before. But what we had done is we'd created a huge administrative burden for our staff, and we found especially for our leaders. So that was something that we really wanted to address going forward. Across about a 6-month period, we did the assessment of the different platforms and came to the implementation of Compass in late 2021. What it enabled us to do was to really streamline and centralize the systems that had grown over time. It's become the central point for student information for our staff to be able to access. And for us, that migration from the different platforms that created was about 10 different things that we had merged into, and continue to look at the ways that Compass can save us time. So yesterday I was chatting with one of our house leaders and said to him how much easier are things now that we have Compass, and he shared with me that at the start he was a bit unsure and a bit against it because he thought, oh, here we go, another toy. But he said about a month in, he had to eat his words. It was so much easier to know what was going on with his students that were in his care. And that he said that the interface, he could really easily work his way around and describe it as a winner. So I figured that we'd done our job pretty well in IT to be able to provide the platform, and well, Compass have done all the work, but to provide that for one of our leaders who plays a crucial role of caring for our students. So for us, that was a real win. During our onboarding process, we did a staged approach, and at each point we found that the customer success team and the support team will really be able to work with us to be able to achieve the goals that we wanted to be able to achieve. So to be able to integrate with our timetable program, to be able to use the Compass API to do some really custom things that we wanted to be able to do. So we're forever coming up with different harebrained ideas, and we always seem to be able to find an API that is able to fit the thing that we're trying to achieve, which is a great thing. So for us, we've been able to integrate with the things that we need. One of our focuses for 2025 has really been to deliver a better family experience. We almost solely deliver that now through the Compass mobile app. Some parents still use the web, but almost all of them now use the mobile app. So parent-teacher conference bookings, news feed, updating medical details, permissions, attendance notes, and we're about to launch learning tasks. So what that meant was all those things were just not possible using the systems that we used to use, or if they were, every one of them had their own app with their own login and their own everything. It was just being able to streamline that has been a real win for our families and for the connection back into the school. So we're about 4 years into our Compass journey, and we have really seen the results of the development and enhancements that Compass put into the platform. Other systems that we use look and act exactly the same way they did 10 years ago when we implemented them. Compass is the complete opposite. We're finding new features that come out and features that actually make a difference to the way we operate. And they may just be a simple tick box or a simple little workflow adjustment that's been added into the platform, but they're well thought through and they actually get used by our staff all the time. So I can definitely vouch for the fact that the development effort that goes into the platform is real. And looking forward into the future, as John said, with some of the roadmap things that are there, we really are looking forward to working with Compass in a more deep way. And we know that looking forward, some of those migrations will be quite complex, especially when we talk about finance and some of those sort of things. But the experience that we had in 2021, and it's only got better since then, reassures me that the teams that Compass have will help us to be able to move in the direction that we want to head in and tackle some of those complex migrations and difficult change management projects that we see that are ahead. But I see us working together in that space. So for us, it's been quite a successful implementation so far, and with lots more to look forward to. So that's a little bit of the journey of Sacred Heart. And happy if there's time later for questions or anything like that. Happy to address anything that comes up. So think back
Thanks,
to you,
Mark.
John.
But perhaps off the back of that, like if you look at your 2021 implementation, can you maybe step us through like what's prompted you in the decision to centralize, like going from the number of systems that you said, and
Yep.
then how do you manage that to get buy-in across your different kind of staff cohorts?
Yeah. So the thing that really prompted us to address it with staff workload was the fact that it was just so time consuming and cumbersome to be able to find the information that they needed. So that was the tipping point, if you like, for us to be able to start. How do we get buy-in? It was by listening to our people. We created a rubric which had some non-negotiable things in it, like it had to integrate with certain things, the timetable had to work, we needed to talk to schools that had successful implementations. But then we listened to people and said, what are the things that you find hard to do? What are the things that are take up a lot of your time? That informed our rubric. So then when we're evaluating, we could actually address the real things that were actually causing people distress. Then when it came to the change management piece, we would refer back to that and we would refer to say, you said this, and this is the outcome. So getting the buy-in from people was really by listening to them, and also really, I don't know that we moved slowly, but we moved methodically through implementation. So it wasn't just, here's every single feature, go crazy. We started with attendance, which is, pretty core. But then what it did, and one of the great things I think about Compass is all the bits are connected together. So when they mark the role, they see other bits and then they dig a bit deeper. And then we would start to learn about what works and what doesn't. So for us, getting buy-in was really listening and listening early.
That's great. And then when you were going through the process and you're kind of stacking the various vendors, I guess side by side, were there kind of three standout criteria, and then which ones weighted the most? And things like, Is it user experience? Is it risk mitigation? Is it kind of in-depth knowledge of a key area? Is it a particular module, track record? Can you just talk us through that and I guess, and maybe candidly too, how we delivered against those?
Yeah, I think for us, across the rubric that we created, there were a number of different things that were really important to different groups. So what a house leader needed versus what a classroom teacher needed were different. So tracking that was difficult, but we managed to come up with a solution. So number one for us was user experience. That it had to be simple, it had to make sense to the different sets of users that we service. So, you know, whether it's students, families, or teachers or admin staff. So we had to listen to them. So the user experience for us was a really important part. The integration with other platforms was key, and not just saying that you can do it, actually seeing it and taking the time to actually see it for us was really good. Um, and all of the other things that you mentioned would have come up, the risk mitigation, the making sure things are secure and safe, and that there's, you know, different checks and balances that are there. All those things we would have addressed, but I think our experience has been and how has Compass delivered against it came out in the feedback that I got from the house leader yesterday. You know, someone that was skeptical at the start that said, oh, yeah, here we go. But now, in his words, he had to eat his words in that he's now, he would find it really difficult to do his job as effectively as what he does without it now because it's become so integral in the way that he works.
That's awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. I think you're going to hang around, and then if we've got some questions that come in towards the end, both Mark and I are happy to jump on those.
Yep, sure.
What I might jump across to now then is just a little bit about Compass, if you haven't heard about us before, and then we'll step through a few of those other items I touched on in the kind of agenda for it. So we've got about 280 staff across offices in Australia. We have just over 3,200 schools in the Australian space that are using us, of which just under 200 of those are independent schools. We are operating in all of the states and territories across Australia and have schools in each of those as well, recognising that there are key differences from a reporting perspective that sit in those, both on the academic front, the attendance side, as well as things that sit with state or Commonwealth reporting. We have just over 3 million users. I think Mark touched on something that's really interesting is the shift that we're seeing towards mobile consumption. So jump back a year or so ago, maybe it was 50, 60% of parents were interfacing, kind of going through a laptop or a tablet and a web-based version. We're seeing it's now towards that 90% space that are adopting it through or interacting with the school through the Compass platform over mobile. And I'll talk through a bit more about the mobile side a bit later as well. And I guess what are we at our core? We're kind of a hyper passionate group of geeks. Like we love this space. My background is originally software engineering. I've worked with schools now for almost 20 years. And I'll exclude my kind of my education of 12 years from that, but it's really been a relationship that we see as a strong partnership, right? This is one where we have a real strong sense of obligation. If we commit to making something work within the platform, it will. And I think what's come from that is some of my closest friends outside of work are principals and teachers across schools as well. So there's a few stats that kind of sit on the screen there, but I'll skip past that. I thought one that was an interesting one to cover. We've copped a little bit of critique from a couple of competitors on this, perhaps around our hosting, just to maybe set the record straight. Compass is not run on a kind of a set of computers that are underneath my desk and that I kick if they don't work. We actually host across three key platforms. One is NextDC. They're an ASX listed business. They have data centers in most of the capital cities, as well as actually multiple in most of the capital cities. And we also are partnered with GCP and AWS. So we have a combination that run the platform, all of which run in Sydney or Melbourne instances. So they're all here. We then actually run a private private fiber network that connects all of these. And so you actually hit a local pop from the technical point of view. If you're in and you're accessing us from Perth, you're actually going to get routed over a private fiber link across to us, and it'll capture that in the point in, say, Perth, Sydney, Melbourne, etc. Jump across and I'll cover a bit around the solution side of things. And so we have a whole range of partners that sit within this ecosystem. I think one thing that I'd call out here is we're really mindful of data security. And so with all of these integrations that sit there, not only is there an integration that is somewhat consistent, but there's also a high level of rigor that goes through in making sure that each of these individual partners conforms to a core set of principles around how they store data. And so you'll notice there's not going to be a provider that sits in this list where they're sending the data offshore to Vietnam or anything like that. And we're really conscious that there's a PR risk, but there's also the ethical and kind of moral obligation that we see sits there, that we're the provider for you. If we go and create an interface across with a third party, we want you to have the comfort that we've gone and assessed that integration and that provider before giving that comfort. In saying that, though, there's also a quite comprehensive piece that sits there on the API side. And so at the school level, and as Mark really touched on at his school, we recognize this is your data, and the ability to interface with it, whether that's querying data, adding data. I saw an awesome setup that a school had built their own custom sick bay tailored solution. So you can obviously use Compass to do it, but they've tied in with APIs and they've built their own system that sits and operates within the sick bay space that's interfacing across. It's entering the entry into Chronicle, and it's also impacting attendance automatically through the APIs that sit within Compass as well. And so I'd call out that we've got a really nice set of integrations that have been tested, but we've also got a whole range of catalog APIs that you can use, and a commitment to that if you find something that's not in those APIs, then let us know and we'll turn it around very quickly to make sure it is there. The next one, I just think it's worth kind of highlighting the life cycle that you see that really exists off the back of how Compass operates. And there really is a single record for a student the whole way through. If you have perhaps enrolments that might be done at birth or early in their childhood as an expression of interest, we have a pathway to express that interest, to capture a certain amount of details, to then perhaps have a trigger a number of years in when it's getting closer to their actual commencement at the school that might ask a series of additional questions. There's follow-on interactions you can have. There's tied in things around notifications for birthdays to make sure that you're kind of building out that relationship. This is really a new area for us. We started work on it a year or so ago, and it's now out and complete. And I guess we'll continue to enhance all of these modules over the coming years as well. But what you see then is that flows across. That record is created, the details are entered, they're updated once. If you've got a sibling at the school and you go and update your contact details, I'm not going into an enrolment record for pre-enrolment that also has to be updated as well. It's a single record for that student that carries through. And now we've made it that it not only carries through while you're a student, but come the end of year 12 or when you complete your schooling at your school, you've got the ability to then create an alumni account. And that alumni account will prompt the student to create, will capture additional details, perhaps their personal email address and things like that, so the school can continue that interaction. But we'll also give them access to things once their school account closes. So thinking of things like your academic reports or similar to that, we want to have the ability to entice a student across to actually create that alumni account, recognizing that alumni, there's a whole raft of things you might want to do, from communication to fundraising that might exist post their completion of their studies. Then jump across, just a bit of a summary of some of the modules. I think we've said it's 45. By June 30, I think we're about to hit 50 modules that sit across the platform. I'll touch on these in a second, some of the new ones that are coming across. But you can really see this. Like, as a business, we're not an amazing sales company or marketing company. We are a product-led business. And so sometimes we get things wrong in terms of how we go and broadly market the platform. But at the core of what we do, we build amazing software. We have an incredible team that sit here, and we are 100% focused on how do we keep adding more and more to this platform that means that the parent experience is great. They improve the homeschool partnership that they have off the back of using us as a tool. that we're reducing the administrative burden that sits with teachers, but also admin staff in schools. And we're giving an ecosystem where I'm not double handling information. I don't risk things being out of date. And we provide an environment that means that security is front and center and covered. So product roadmap, and I think even more important than product roadmap is what's been delivered on the product roadmap. So this was our view for this calendar year. These are the modules, and you can see a whole range of these have actually been completed. So I think it's about 7 out of 12 here. So I think we're well and truly on track. The hope is that we'll have a few more that we get to inject into this year's product roadmap as well. So Compass FMS, probably one that we've heard really come back as resounding feedback from independent schools. We offer integrations with Xero, with Sage, with Technology One, with NetSuite, with MyOb. I think if you want to use a third-party finance system, we are big advocates for that, and we're not going to change our position in terms of the tremendous integration that we've got there. We have built out over the past 5 or so years a really comprehensive billing module that interfaces with those third-party finance tools as well. So you can go in, it can create the debtors automatically across in that system. It can accommodate things like separated families. It can have multiple debtors. Grandma can be attached as a debtor for a certain proportion of fees for a particular family. You've got the ability to raise charges in Compass, to receipt charges, to automate payment methods that sit there, to put in sibling discounts, to put in scholarships. All of that can be managed within Compass, and it'll push it to those finance systems. But we went one step further and said, there are times when you're going through this process and you want a single vendor throat to choke or to question on how something works. And so we've introduced Compass FMS, leveraging the Odoo functionality behind the scenes, but it means that you have a single vendor and a single finance solution that sits within the Compass platform, which is new. Similarly, we've done an extension to enrollments. So if you want to use things like Enroll HQ or a range of other enrollment tools, we're absolutely open to that, and we've gone down the path of integrating. But we've gone one step further and said we can also do this completely within platform as well. And so if you choose to go and build out an expression of interest process, a comprehensive following of that student through their pre-enrollment steps, you can do that. You've got the ability to do it on mobile as well as on web. I'd call out a fascinating one for me is the majority of parents we're seeing, and there's hundreds of schools using our enrollments module now, are doing it through mobile. I always thought this would be a step that someone would use a computer for, but we're seeing that mobile is also being used in that space. Alumni and donations, I'll try and touch on that. We've also delivered Class Builder for the primary school space to build classes out for students who should be in class together and students who shouldn't be put together. Learning task, whole range of enhancements. You can now mark up PDFs live within the platform. Curriculum management, you can build it from start to finish, what the curriculum for a particular subject should look like. And clubs, which is the ability to manage a whole variety of different sessions that might be running within the school, participation in those, and charges on a group basis or on a per instance basis as well. Mindful of time, so I will kick into the next one. There's a bit more detail around the FMS side. So I touched on that briefly, but it does give you a bit of a feel for how we've done this integration, how you can allow teachers within the school to go through if they might be responsible for a particular sub-program or a faculty, how they can actually request their budgets, see their budgets spend, and all of that within Compass, so within the current platform, how that can automatically flow across into finance, so you've got that view at the top level, how I can request a purchase order and have all of the workflow piece that can sit there for things like events and excursions within Compass, but meaning I don't have to leave that single experience that sits there, how we can get prompts and notifications that go across to the relevant teachers within the school as well. Talks a little bit about how that ties together, but again, in the interest of time, I won't cover that. We're more than happy to go into a lot of detail should it be of interest. Enrollments Pro. So as I touched on before, we said we recognize that we did basic enrollments about 2 years ago. We've now extended this to do all of that pre-interest or pre-enrollment stage as well. So how do I express interest? How do I tie that across to the record that I've got within a school that knows that perhaps one of the parents is an ex-student within the school or a previous alumni, and we want to give weighting towards them? How do I go across and build really complex weightings that sit there? We've done stuff that lets you do geographical distance from school or geographical distance from a church that might help you in doing your ratings that can be automated that sit behind prioritization of enrollments. You can build out a whole range of custom lists that sit there that are tailored school by school as well. And then I'll try and touch on it too in the live demo. You can get visibility as to how you're tracking in terms of the different stages that sit in your enrollment funnel and top of funnel process. Alumni, which I covered, but I'll just dig into it a little bit deeper. This is, I've completed my schooling. How do we seamlessly move you across to an account, but recognize it's still the same account that you've got? We're just perhaps reducing some of the functionality that's sat there, but we're going to give you things like your academic reports, the ability to follow up and register and get notified for upcoming school events or sports events that might be running, as well as to give you a view that ties in things like donations and contributions into your kind of dashboard for a particular student as well, and the integration across to social media streams as well. So the ability to tie a post across and have it push to perhaps your Facebook, your Instagram, or your Twitter feed for your school are now in the platform too. And one of the big ones that I will confess I held a different view, and our team here and the schools that we work with shared that perhaps my view wasn't right on this. My view came from a very technical approach, which was I didn't really, I've never wanted to deviate in terms of building a spread code base within the platform. And so we'd always been quite firm on our position that there is a single Compass app, and you go to the App Store and you can find it. I think it ranks as number 2 or 3 in the education lists on, for example, iOS. And we said, this is fantastic, right? We know it's there. It's a single app. It means you can go cross school easily. You can have the different contexts that sit within the platform for a parent, for a student, for a teacher. But what came back was us failing to appreciate when we concepted this, that the branding piece that sits in independent private schools is so great. And so what we've done is we've introduced 3 tiers of app that you can use. You can use the standard Compass app, which is in the App Store. You can go across and say, I want the standard Compass app, but I actually want to tailor it so that the image that appears on the home screen in iOS or on Android is actually our school image. So we'll take that brand across, but that means a parent is still going into the app and searching for Compass when they download it. Or you can go across and say, as a school, brand is key for us, and we want to go and do a search for XYZ school in the App Store, and we want it to be returned with an app that is completely branded for our school. And what's amazing here is we're not going and building you a kind of a half-baked single deployment where the source code is one specifically for your school. We've worked out a way, and we're now deploying our branded app across with all of the functionality that sits behind the comprehensive app that we've built over the past 3, 4, 5 or so years. And what that means is things like NFC integration. If you've got an Android device, you can open up the app, you can be marking the role, and students can tap their ID card on the back of your phone. It's going to recognize their card and mark them off automatically on the roll. It means things like push notifications are seamlessly being pushed across. It means that we can tie across and do a whole range of things that integrate with the interface. So things like widgets, for example. I can go onto my phone, I can have a widget added based on that app. It can go across, it can be on my home screen, and I can open a door within the school, or I can unlock a boom gate that's connected through the Compass app as well. So there's a whole range of benefits that come with having this comprehensive app that we've invested probably tens of millions of dollars in over the past few years, where you now have the branding capability that goes across to it as well. So I'll jump across now into a live demo of the platform, and then we'll work through perhaps a few questions. I'm really conscious of time, so I'll have a colleague kind of tap me on the shoulder if I'm going on too long. So quick intro, this is the home screen that you get when you go into Compass. There's no multiple portals that really exist. This is a single portal, and we bring all the information that's relevant to you. I should call out, we've made a very conscious decision around the separation of staff accounts and parent accounts. And a lot of this came from, well, we think there's a duty of care that exists obviously for a parent for their children, but there's a duty of care that exists for a teacher when they're in the context of applying their teacher hat. And so we didn't want to have this muddying of the waters between an account that a parent has and an account that a teacher has. When you're a teacher in the classroom, you should apply the hat of I'm the teacher and the context that should be tied to that. But go step through that, and it's very fair that you might have the same app that you want to toggle then between and see the view from a parent view for your kids who are at that school. And so what we've done is a really rapid switching that can sit within the app that allows you to say, nope, I want to jump across and see the parent context that I've got for my 2 or 3 kids at the school. But then I'll also flip across and I can go towards the staff one. And a lot of this also comes down to the audit requirements that come with this. If you have an incident or you want to audit what people have accessed, you want to audit it from the perspective of them as a staff member, not what they've done as a parent per se. And so we've made a really conscious decision that we have a single student record that sits across the system, but we have done a context delineation between a staff member at the school versus a parent at the school. Happy to talk through that. And my background's, as I said, kind of IT and law, and we can talk through all the kind of the reasons we've made that decision from both a privacy and duty of care perspective. But what that means is I log in here. This is a staff member. On the left-hand side, I get my schedule. My schedule comes across from a combination of things. We do an awesome concept called layering, which means I can bring a schedule across from, for example, I'll have my clipboard activities that might be running as co-curricular outside of hours. I'll have my instrumental music classes, which might be done through an external system or can be built directly within Compass. And then I'm going to have a timetabling product, be that Timetabler or maybe the Tribal solution or Edvel that sits there, and that feeds across too. And what we do here is we show you the view of everything that's relevant to you, staff meetings that you might have set up, whether those meetings are set up within Compass or maybe they're synced across from your Google Calendar or your Office 365 environment, as well as those other classes or activities that might pop up. If I've got a wellbeing session with a student, that'll pop up in here as well. On the right, I have my notification section. These are tailored to me and they're actions that typically require my attention. There's an enrollment application that requires my review. This is based on the permissions and the role that I have within the system. There might be outstanding meetings that I've got actions to complete, the attendance notes that might require my review. So a student might have submitted notes and maybe they've passed a threshold. So it might be 5 or 6 days that a parent said they're going to be absent. So you might have a triggered requirement for approval within the school. That'll come up here. Hopefully you'll never see this at your school that you've got any unmarked roles, but they appear here too. If I was to miss a lesson or to take an extra, I will be allocated that extra as an unmarked role if I haven't marked the role, not the teacher who would normally take that class. Scroll down, we've got a newsfeed section here. This is really designed to give schools the ability to showcase things that are happening within the school, to do galleries, to upload a whole range of nice kind of interactive content. You've got the ability to do reactions in here, hopefully removing the need for things like some Facebook groups or things like that might exist. You can turn on comments. You can also turn off comments across the board or turn them on only for specific items. And you've got an awesome ability to track who's actually viewed that newsfeed post. Sitting behind these news items, I can go in here, I can add a post, I can put in content, I can drag across images that I think are relevant. I can tick this box here called Schoolfront, which will actually push it across with an API call to your public school website. So you can have items published once as news items here that flow across to your public website. And I can also publish this across to talking points. If I tick that, this news item will now go across to screens. So if you've got digital signage across the school, it'll push it across there, including images that might be published within this too. It's a whole range of targeting that sits within here, ties in with alumni. There is a single point that you go into to publish any news across the platform. As I said before, you can enable comments, etc., and reactions that sit there too. We then have this section called Digest, which is super cool. I can subscribe to individual students, groups of students, types of flags that might happen, whether they're positive, negative, etc. They'll appear in this list here. And this is highly customized for me based on the role that I'm in within the school. So as a principal, I might say, show me all the serious incidents or signs of well-being concern that sit across the school. I'll get a view here. I can click on those. I can see the details of what was recorded. I can even add a comment and have a discussion on that particular thread as well. Or I could jump across and I could look at that individual student's profile. If I was a teacher though, pretty straightforward. I go in the beginning of the class. I can do this from mobile too, where it's native. I click on a class. It takes me to the class profile. I've got a summary of notes that might have been left by a relief teacher. I can see the lesson plans that have been left. This ties into if you want to use Canvas or you want to use Toddle, for example. We've got awesome integration, fantastic relationship with the guys at Toddle and with Canvas, and also an integration across with Schoolbox as well. You can also use a lot of the LMS functionality that sits within Compass. If you want to do interactive rubrics, if you want to have grades flow across, if you want to do assessments, if you want to allow students to submit their work, mark up those documents inline, you can do that as well. There's a whole curriculum builder piece, which I won't get a chance to show you today. Then as a teacher, it's 2 clicks. So 1 click to get to the class, second to mark the roll. I see a view here that shows me a summary of all the students in the class. I can see it's suggesting this student's going to be late to class because of an arrival that was put through. That could have been done automatically on a kiosk, and it's suggesting that to a teacher. I can put in an observation that a student has left the class and gone on a toilet break. That'll record the timestamp that sits there. It can put a trigger and let you get analytic data back on how often that's happening. I've got the ability to do an in detailed observation. So I can click in here and say I want to do a record of, I don't know, the merit or recommend them for a merit. There was a fighting class. I can record that. I can have perpetrators, etc., that are involved in that particular one. Whole set of alerts that sit in here as well. I won't save that role. There's a whole range of different features that sit there. I could say I've got this class. I actually want to find a random student in this class. I can go through, I can spin the role. I can get this listing of students. I can pick a random student and that can be shown too. It's a whole range of things that sit in there. There's a ton of stuff around the analytics piece, which we call Pulse. I can tie this in and get a report that looks at things like NCCD reporting. I can flag an observation. I can get on my role any kind of observational data that sits around NCCD as well. I've got the ability to dive deep and build triggers that sit behind this. So I might say, I'm going to record an observation for a particular student in my class. When I record that observation, it might be to do with uniform. If it's the first time the student's had a uniform violation, it might send them an email reminding them about the uniform policy. If it's second time, it might notify the parent as well. If it's the third time, you might say at our school, we'll find the next available detention, we'll schedule you in that, we'll notify the parent and the student you've been added, and we'll add you to the roll for that detention automatically as well. So there's a whole complex piece that you can build in Chronicle. I should call out all of that is built within platform. It's not something that you need us to build, but we also have a whole team that are really specialists in this too. So you can get us to come out or do it remotely online with you and show you how to build it, but then you can tailor it going forward as well. From the teacher's page, when they're looking at a particular class, they can also jump across and look at some analytics. And you can build out these custom analytic dashboards that sit there. So here's just a bit of an example of one that's looking at kind of mark books, how they're doing in terms of distribution, what's attendance looking like. Can I compare that to this time last year or a particular different group? We bring in all of the data from the groups like NatPlan, got a great relationship with the team at Janison there to have a lot of that automated and come across. If you do PAT, ACR, literacy testing, numeracy testing, there's about 50 of these that we bring across into the platform as well. I should call out, this is the analytics in Pulse that we think is really great for a teacher, but there's a whole ton that you can bring across with the APIs too. If you say, we actually want to build our own data lake or a data warehouse, we want to use Power BI or Tableau or Yellowfin, you can push all of that across there too. So you can do things like your board reporting as well. There's learning tasks that allow you to do the assessments there. There's the rubrics that can sit behind this. In the interest of time, I won't touch on that too much. You've got the ability to jump across and look at the accounting side. So how does it look from the finance side? How's that tying across in terms of expenditure on corporate cards and the like? I've got the ability to go across and jump into alumni, which we touched on before. So I can see a view as to kind of how's it tracking on the alumni front, what's it looking like in terms of donation success. I've also got the ability to jump across and look at, if we go back, we'll jump into, say, the enrollments that we are touching on a little bit more before. I've got the ability to see here kind of what's the breakdown of kind of male, female that are coming in. How's that sitting on a per campus basis? Where are they sitting at the different stages that sit across the enrollment pipeline? And then I've also got the ability to see, well, how does that kind of flow through? Expressions of interest are here, number that have gone through and completed that draft sits here. How does that look on a per campus basis? How does that look on a per gender basis, etc.? It's a whole range of these that you can tailor. I can build in an email notification piece that triggers automated emails to do that really warm hand-holding piece from the engagement piece all the way through. It's their birthday. We want to send them a happy birthday message or something similar to that. I'm conscious I'm going to get wrapped up in a second in terms of timing. So there's also a few other parts that sit there, everything from your ability to do in-platform chats. So if you want to replace WhatsApp groups, you can do that. The ability for you to build out really kind of class contact lists. So you might say, we actually want to allow, especially in primary schools or K to 6, we're seeing this, the ability for a primary school teacher to share the list of other parents that are happy for their certain details to be shared across with the other group of parents within that class. Parents can opt into that electronically. It can automatically be updated. You can tie it into the contact details you've got on record. There's a whole privacy piece that sits behind that as well. Learning tasks I've kind of hinted at. Semester reports. I would flag that we do semester reports in every state and recognize that every state has quite complex differences that sit in with how they do attendance information, but also academic reports. That's tied in whether it's Victorian curriculum, New South Wales curriculum, Australian curriculum, build it out for IB, etc. Clubs, I've kind of covered that before. It was one of the new items we put in from the roadmap. Compass Ticks is like your Humanitix or Ticketek or Try Booking, where you can actually integrate that and tie it across too for alumni tracking as well. So you can see engagement for alumni. Events is awesome. I'll show you this really quickly. It's a bit off script, but you can go in here and you can build out comprehensive workflows that sit behind your events processes. You can track the attendees, you can give approval for those attendees, you can allocate them across to certain bus groups that sit there. You can tie all of this across with your finance part. You can build payment plans. So if we're going on a camp that's off-site, but I want to take a deposit in the first instance, but I want to capture their details, whether that's using Pay2 as an advanced capture method for payments, or it might be something like credit card, you can build that into the process. You've got your whole risk piece that sits behind it. I can put in the types of risks that are going to be incurred. We give you a whole catalog bank, which is tailored state by state and usually tied back into the government one, which you are also having the ability now to tailor within your school as well. There's a review and sign off piece, there's additional questions, there's a whole chunk of things that sit in here around approvals, etc. So I'll jump across now. Oh, the last part I'll just show you there is privacy mode, which is super cool. It's recognizing a teacher could have a student come up and ask them a question as to where am I, what's my my schedule looking like. I can type in Hayden's name at the top to go across to his profile. But what you might want to make sure of is he's standing behind me. I want to find out his classes. I don't want the stuff that's private to actually be shown. And so privacy mode can actually be turned on across the site, shows you a red bar, and anything that's private information will actually get blurred across the platform as well. So while you're kind of browsing with privacy mode on, you jump in, you go down to sections that should be private, and you'll notice if you're connected to a projector or something, you're quite protected. All right, we'll jump out of the live demo now, and I'll just go back to our agenda items. So moving on from the product side, I think one thing that's particularly key for schools in the independent private school space is really, this is a big move. There's a change management piece that sits behind it, and you need a team that is local, that can be on site, that can be in front of you, that can work with you to roll this out, both on the technical front, as well as on the side of designing the program, designing out what the phased implementation should look like, and really highlighting where we've seen tremendous success that's come across in doing this as well. So data migration is covered. We've migrated from, I think, every provider that we've come across in the country. We've got a whole range of things that sit there. We're very big on the ability for you to tailor your branding guidelines that sit there, the ability for you to tailor the interaction, the timing that parents have in coming on with the platform. As I touched on before, the branding across the portals also really big. Jump across them, we've got a whole team that are awesome in terms of going on site. And I'd stress too, our engineers are in country, which means that if we think there's something that's technically challenging, there's no reason why we can't have an engineer come out with the relationship manager and have a chat with you in person on site as well. On the priority support, you have support from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but we also have the benefit of then flowing over to other time zones. So we'll leverage Perth for a bit throughout the year, but we also jump across and use our teams in London and in Dublin. That's an optional one that you can obviously take up as part of the support. A lot of that came from the fact that a timetabler might be working at 10 p.m. the night before school's about to go back. They're about to do an upload. They've got a question around something that they're not sure about, and there's someone that's on hand to provide access. I'd highlight that about 56% of our live chat now is actually turned around within the live chat communication itself. So it's not going off to someone else to actually have to go and complete that. All the standard stuff around SSO integration and SAML sits there too. And I thought this is an interesting one. I'm not going to read this, but maybe if you want to screen capture it, or it's a good series of questions that we've come across through the process that are worth asking to us when we come out and we meet with you, but also to any other provider that you've got in this space. The other part I'd call out is it's a big change moving across to a new platform. And so taking the time to in depth do an evaluation of multiple providers, like I'd encourage you to look at us, but also to look at a few others. I think invest the time once you get down to that short list to commit 2 or 3 days and really put us or the other vendor as well through the process of the intimate, here is the use case we've got. Show us how NCCD is actually going to apply. Then step us through on when you come and get audited on NCCD, what does that look like? And there's a whole range of these things that I think are worthwhile doing at that initial point, because finding out halfway through an implementation, like no one's going to most people won't cancel an implementation off the back of that, but it can cause a ton of grief. I think then we're pretty close to Q&A. So there's obviously the ability to shoot through, scan that QR code if you've got any other questions, but I'll open it up to any questions anyone might have. Hope that was okay, Fred.
That was fantastic. Good timing, John. Well done. Do we have a few questions here? So we're trying to run them through quickly with
Sure.
you. So the first one being, how is it built? How is your product built? Is it per module or groups of modules?
Yep. So it's build. It's how we do it is we license it per module, but what actually happens in reality is we actually package them up into packages that are relevant. So you say, I want to do academic reporting. Well, we bundle up everything, right? You'll get rubrics that sit within that. You get curriculum managements that sits there. You get learning tasks, semester reports, etc. So more often than not, we'll tailor the offering to a school, and it will be individual modules that we package up that I think are relevant, that we think are relevant.
Thank you so much. Next question is, when you say pre-K, does that mean you handle CCS, that being childcare subsidy? Does Compass
No,
handle that?
you might have seen that was on the roadmap slide before. So that's one that we're working on. But at the moment we do K to 12. I mean, there are schools that are using it pre-K, but I think for us to kind of endorse it as that, we want to add a bit more functionality. So it's not tying in with Centrelink or anything like that for the enrollments.
Great, that's helpful to know. Thank you. Many schools have an intranet where they post links like various e-forms, documents, microsites, SharePoints, etc.
Yeah.
Does Compass effectively replace the need for an intranet, or can you, for example, set up a staff policies page?
Yes, so you can definitely set up a staff policy page. There's 2 sections that are relevant there. One is called school resources and the other is school documentation. You can either create pages directly within Compass, or if you're using the Microsoft Suite or Google Apps for Education Suite, you can also link them across. So you can go and put PDF documents in there. You can create documents live within the platform itself, which have rich content, or you can link it across to an alternate platform as well.
Excellent. Now, is there any plans for HR payroll module?
Yeah, so I think in September, I think it's September, October, maybe to be safe, I'll say December. It will get the approval with the ATO for STP, which will mean payroll will be available within the platform.
Fantastic. And last but not least, John, Morris is asking, has Compass completed a Saber Tech for Students evaluation? And is it a report available for schools to access?
I think that's the ST4S stuff. In which
Yes,
case,
correct.
yes, we complete that. I think whenever they do it, if it's every year, we are on that. I'm actually not fully across the detail, but I think if you ask ST4S, they provide it to you. But if they're not, then we're happy to share it as well. So we do complete that as well as ISO, as well as PCI.
Fantastic. John, thank you so much, as well as Mark. Thank you for your time in sharing Compass with us. I'm sure that if anyone's got any other questions, they can reach out to you using the info that you've shared on the screen at the moment. Would we be able to access a copy of the slide deck to share with others after this presentation, John?
Yes, we'll share a copy through.
Excellent. Thank you so much once again. That was a really informative session. Grateful for your time, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Fred. And I see you've got Anthony jumped in, so you're in good hands with him with Central. Thanks so much, guys. Have a lovely
Thank
day.
you.
See ya.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Cheers. Thank you.